All right, we're gonna slowly figure this out. Can you hear me? Let me know if you can actually hear this audio. Said it was testing. Don't know if you could hear that. We should be good now. I think. We're gonna copy some shit over. All right. Hang tight here. So we're gonna slowly. A version of, I guess, our Sunday charting and hopefully all of our other charting where we're leveraging the YouTube stream or some sort of stream to actually run these classes. So a big issue that we have right now is that if we're running a class and people are late, they can't go back in time and see what we were doing. I think that the YouTube stream itself kind of eliminates some of the issues that we were having. So if we run a YouTube stream, people that join late can actually go back and see what's going on. The video itself should automatically be uploaded, right? So we shouldn't need to mess around with downloading, clipping, uploading, any of that stuff. It should automatically be there. We have the equipment to do it, right? So we have a pretty nice camera setup and like all of our microphone stuff that seems to be working relatively well. It's just easier, better quality than Zoom. The chat functionality is better. So the issue with Zoom is that when you're using the chat or if you're answering questions from the chat, there's when you're playing it back, there's no way to see the chat. So with the YouTube streams, you can actually go back and view the chat kind of as it's happening. So you're able to see how that's going. So we're gonna demo this. There's only 5 people on right now, so it's not gonna be, life or death here. We can switch. Um, and kind of go from there. Okay, so let's get this going. Let's see if we have our economic calendar. What we got going on for the week of August 5th. So PMI is Monday, 15 minutes after open, right? So we can expect some heavy volatility at the very start of the week. PMI Global Services, PMI Global Composite. Tuesday, nothing to, and then PMI later in the day at 10. So we might have volatility the first half hour of the day with some pretty solid news releases. Tuesday seems pretty flat. Wednesday doesn't look like there's going to be a whole lot. Thursday, jobless claims, 4-week average, continuing jobless claims. So Thursday morning, so this is pre-market, this is an hour before market opens, we should see some action, some Fed speakers, and Friday doesn't exist, so I'm going to assume that there's not much going on Friday. So Thursday and Monday are the only high activity kind of economic events that we have going on, so that's good. As far as earnings go, that is very small. We've got Uber before open on Tuesday, Rivian, Airbnb, Reddit will be interesting to see how they're doing. Shopify, Disney, big name, CVS, big name, Hood, big name, Lilly, Datadog if you're into meme stocks, Nikola if you're into stocks that seemingly are trending towards zero, Upstart as well. So there's nothing too big, nothing that's going to have too crazy of a holding on the S&P or the Qs. Shopify and Disney and Uber are looking like the biggest names here. Nothing's going to have too much of a hold in relation to last week. Last week's earnings was crazy. On top of the news, on top of FOMC decisions, it was a bit of a choppy week. Volatility was pretty high even going into the end. I'm really hoping that we can get a little bit more consistency going into this week. We don't have to worry about one earnings play kind of moving the entire market, which is good. It's better overall. Last week was very difficult to trade outside of day trading, right? If you're taking something and you're trying to swing it, it was, shooting for the stars there. But this week we should have a little bit better luck. So let's start. I don't know if you can hear that, but my market data on IBKR keeps flipping in and out. I don't know if it's just because it's the weekend or what, but just be aware if it looks a little laggy. We'll have to deal with that. So like we've been doing, we're going to flip out to our weekly. So we printed the third weekly candle in a row on the S&P, right? So that's pretty big. As you can see, the last time that we did that was in March of this year, March going into April, and we have only printed a maximum of 3 candles, 3 red weekly candles in a row since October of last year when we started to push up. Even before that, it was still very rare to see 4 green weekly candles in a row. So not that that really matters, but something to keep in mind. From top to bottom on our last drawdown, so this was in that March to April, 527, so about 30-point pullback, about a 30-point pullback. From here, 566. So we've had, again, a 30 to 40-point pullback, so very strong. I would be surprised if we start flipping red, if we print a 4th red candle and we have some significant, downside momentum. It's going to be interesting to see what's going on here, right? Like we haven't seen it in, my market data keeps flipping out, sorry. We haven't seen that since September of last year, so almost a full year. We haven't printed a full red month. Shouldn't really matter though. Nobody's really swinging weeklies on the S&P. Just something to kind of think about. So let's zoom in. We clearly can see like the week was obviously red. Going in Thursday, Friday, we're pretty red. Friday basically was just a consolidation the entire day, right? We started, by the time we hit our range, which was, basically the first 30-minute candle was all of the movement, right? We pretty much printed inside of that the remainder of the day. Not a lot going on. No exciting end of day moves on the S&P. Very flat. No real levels on the 30-minute. We just kept dropping down. No real levels on the hourly. So we got to kind of zoom back out to our daily, right? So we can see right around 532 area, which is right around our close on Friday, is going to be a pretty strong hold. 532, 5265, and then probably somewhere around this bottom, so 518-ish. Seem to be levels to the downside. To the upside, we're going to be able to use a lot of the levels that we had previously. 542.75 is still pretty valid. Let's see if we can extend that out over a few more days. So right around here. Yeah, definitely still valid. That's probably our main downside level. We have a small kind of discrepancy here between 539 and 540 where candles aren't really aligning. There's no open or close in that area, but it's still quite a ways away. Still forming some upside levels. Again, the main issue that we had when we were trading at all-time highs is that there's no real way to retest those levels. So this is kind of the first time that we've gone up, we've come back down. Now we get to see, are we holding levels that held as resistance points for extended periods? So again, we're on the daily. So for about a week, 543 or 532 ish, 531.5 kind of held as a resistance, dipped down, finally ripped over it. Now we're coming back down to test it from the upside. So will it hold as support? The next place that we actually had that happen is going to be closer to 521. So we definitely have bullish momentum or bearish momentum, right? Going in 3 weekly red candles, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, all very nasty on the S&P. So we're looking for areas to kind of see if we're going to bounce. Alternatively, because we are downtrending, it would be nice to push up, hit a rejection, take shorts there, and bring it down. But there's no real major levels up until 542, 543. So that might be a little tricky. You might have to switch over to like the 15 to see if there's anything really there. And again, the smaller the time frame, the less confidence I have in any sort of level. Daily levels are going to be better than, hourly levels are going to be better than 30-minute levels, are going to be better than 1 minute, are going to be better than 30-second. So always something to keep in mind. If we're looking at short term, I think that the most recent area that we could look to bounce up to and hopefully short is going to be 537.5. So on the 25th and on the 30th, that was that big V-shape, I guess not recovery, sell-off, which came down to 537.5. And then again on the 30th, we kind of tested that area before we ripped back up. So I'd like to see us kind of push up into that area. That would probably be the first place I look to go and take some puts. Sorry, let's get rid of this. All right, we got a couple people in here. How's everybody doing? Can you guys use the chat? Let me know that it's working. Can you see my face? Can you hear my voice? Show me some interaction so I know I'm not just talking to my coffee cup here. I've never used this this YouTube live thing, so I need some reassurance that we're actually effectively working here. I think I'm going to have to do some tweaking here. The delay seems a little aggressive. I can see it. How do I change that? We'll have to deal with that somehow. All right, so we're going to go over to QQQ while we're waiting. Somebody will say something to me in the chat at some point in time. This is why we're doing it with the live chat and not the, with charting and not with trading. We'll get to the trading soon. So let's zoom out. Boom, boom. I know. QQQ also printing its third weekly red candle, or fourth weekly red candle. Damn, that's big. But it has done that. It also did that in January, February, March into April. So the same spot where we had the three week red on the S&P. I gotta get rid of that. My market data is just freaking out on the weekend. So we're on the weekly. Naturally, same thing with SPY. We draw our levels to places that seem to hit as support or resistance numerous times on the weekly. So this is over the course of almost 2 months. 449 seems to be the main rejection spot. I kind of tested it. Haven't really tested it from the upside yet. So we closed under that on the weekly. I'll be curious to see what happens when we open back up. That's going to be the main level for the Qs going into this week. Somewhere down here will probably be the next one if we actually flush under this. We'll take 412. It's not as strong of a level. 412 should flush over into 381 territory. Had to create a channel talk. All right. How the hell did I make an arrow? How did I do that? What the hell? All right, I don't know how I managed to do that, but that's different. Lost my train of thought there. All right, so QQQ. We want to see if we reclaim 449. If we don't reclaim 449, we still have downside momentum. I think we could see 413 relatively quickly, right? This is again on the weekly, so this could be by the end of the week. That's still a pretty big flush on QQQ overall. That's probably going to be about 8 points. Yeah, 7.5. So we'd have to have a pretty nasty week. We've already had 4 red weeks in a row on QQQ, and they keep seemingly getting bigger. So is it going to be a bounce? Are we going to be flat? We need to see some sort of doji close on the weekly. So otherwise, we're just going to keep dying off. Daily definitely showed a little bit of buying coming in, not a whole lot. Still way more selling than buying. Volume was very high the last 2 days, so we're still looking good. Again, we need to. There's a wick, right? So we've got a wick somewhere down in here. So let's assume here we're gonna mess around with this. Let's assume that our main level on QQQ right now that we're trying to hold is 449, right? So this is where we've bounced several times. We're on the daily now, not the weekly, but I mean ranged, and then it tested, and then it kind of came up. So we wicked through that level, but ultimately held it, right? So when we're looking at levels, and I'll say this over and over again, it doesn't, we're never going to be able to dial in the exact price point, right? So even if the chart is showing, oh, we rejected 449.01, right? We know that market makers need to move the level above or below that. We don't know by how much, but we know that in that area, somewhere around there, over whatever our time period is, we want to see that level hold. So even though we closed under it on the daily, right, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to break. We need to see some sort of confirmation that we're going to continue to hold under there. It would be like taking this candle and seeing that it dips under, right, and just immediately going, oh, we're going to short it because we broke under the level, but not waiting for confirmation. And then in that case, it ends up buying back over that level and then continuing up, right? So just because the candle closed there, it doesn't necessarily mean that that level has given up yet. It's pretty close to it. We need to see some sort of confirmation before we make that assumption. If you don't wait for confirmation, that's what people tend to consider buying in early, right? You're playing the breakout, waiting for confirmation kind of gives you an opportunity to avoid the fake out side of that. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it'll just keep going and there is no fake out. Other times I personally think it's best to wait for confirmation. Personal preference. Can't talk as guest. All right, cool. So QQQ, again, main level, 449. We're going to see what happens with that when we open on Monday. A sell-off from there, 415, I think, is very possible within the next week or two. I don't really see much acting as support in between here and there. So if we start selling under 449, I think that that's going to be the ideal target. Upside is a little bit trickier. Upside, we don't really have as much to go off of. There's only a couple of days that have respected the same level to the upside, 459, so about 10 points up. A couple of days there, we ranged above it. It's more grasping at straws. It's not as obvious as this, right? This is a lot cleaner. So I can remove that. But as we move to all-time highs, we kind of have to work with what we're given. You're not always going to have a clean set of levels when you're working up there. The longer you stay in that area, the more levels kind of develop. But the first couple of days, the first couple of weeks, if you just keep going up, there's no way to actually see where price is being absorbed or accepted because it's just straight buying. So you don't really have levels to retest. So now that we've kind of moved up, we've come back down, we're able to see here, a couple of days are here, and then we had some wicks through it. It's not the cleanest, but I'd say that that's probably our next best bet. And then from there, maybe somewhere in the 476 area. Again, it gets harder and harder the closer you get to an all-time high to generate your levels. But I think that's pretty far away still, right? Like if we can move up there, the 458, 459 area is going to be the next target. I think that downside target, again, on the daily, we can kind of see something here. Downside target of 434 is realistic, 434.5 to the downside. So 449, we're going to open on the week. We need to see how 449 is tested, right? So we need to see if we come back up to it, if we reject it. If we reject it, we should be able to take potentially a weekly swing down to 434. If we hold over it, I think the end of week, we could see 459 possibly. These are weekly levels, and on a very stagnant week, we might not move the way that we need to get there. So It's kind of far out, and so it's going to be a little bit difficult to gauge what we're going to do day to day. After a week like last week, I definitely want to play it a little close to the chest to start the week. My signaling has been the analysis has been there, but the trading itself has been a little wonky. So I need to get my confidence back. So we'll take QQQ probably pretty light because we're gonna open right at a major level on Monday. But yeah, it's so somebody had just mentioned how war is going to impact the market overall. The market really seems to like war, right? War, production of goods, sale of goods tends to move the market. I don't really see much from all this stuff. There was very little sustained negativity from any news of war, whether it's Ukraine and Russia, whether it's any of the stuff that's happening in the Middle East. It's clearly had very marginal effect on the market, considering that we're not that far away from all-time highs. So something to keep in mind. Anything that happens from that in the negative aspect, unless it's the U.S. getting bombed, is probably going to be pretty short term, as far as absorption in the U.S. stock market, at least. Nvidia had some crazy movement on sec. Let's just go through some of these tickers to see what happened. Tesla, people are like, oh, don't short Tesla. Then Tesla drops again. Another 25% in a couple weeks. Oh my god, let me get rid of this, please. Thank you. Meta actually doesn't look that bad. That's kind of supporting that range. I think that'll be good. We'll come back to that. Google. All right. So I guess there is a little bit of lag between the video and the chat. So while I'm going through these, if there's any tickers that you are specifically looking for, let me know, and we'll see if we can get to some of those. I'm just going to go down the list, standard list here. So NVIDIA, weekly, red on the week. I feel like most of tech was red. We can just stop going through the weekly. Meta was green. Meta was basically the only green from the major tech that we were looking at. Google was red, AMD was red. Okay, cool. So we can stop looking at the weekly here. We'll go back to the dailies. Oh, that's a good point. Apple was on my watch list. Where did it go? Apple was also green on the weekly. Thank you. SMCI is wild. We'll check MU after. All right. Yeah, thank you for reminding me that my Apple was, I don't know where it went. It went to the shadow realm. Okay, so Apple. So we had Apple earnings. Apple is relatively flat on the week. Price action has not really been ranging. This is back on the weekly. Let's go to our daily. Daily. Looking pretty good here, around 217, 218. We're seeing a hold that we wanted. So again, just continued testing of the same area is what we want to see. That's all level is, right? Is something trading at the same spot and seeing it react similarly over and over again, right? So for Apple, we can see numerous touches, support and or resistance and support, right? Right around 217, 218. Again, levels are never going to be spot on. If anybody goes to you and says 218 on the dot, not a cent higher or lower, they're lying to you. You're gonna get wicked out. All we're looking for when we look at levels, right, is just price to do something or some sort of reactionary element on the chart from price action around that level. Around being the key word here. Not 217 on the dot, not 218 on the dot, just somewhere around there. We want to see a shift of momentum. We want to see some large sell orders coming in. We want to see something around there. That's all we're looking for here. It's not to the dot. You don't need to be to the dot on your level. You just need to know that somewhere in this area something should start happening, right? So we flipped. It was resistance, flipped, was support. Even with earnings, we started to hold over it. Under 217, right around there, I think that we can start to see some selling. Selling's going to take out 206 first, and then probably 200 as the main psych level. I think that's far enough. That's already 10% down on the week. So upside is going to be a little bit trickier. Like I said, there's fewer and fewer levels to the upside. We can see here that the most tested area is going to be right around 225, which makes sense, another kind of psych level. So if we hold over 217, 218, I think that we can take longs to 225, and then probably back up to 237, 238. Downside under 217, I think that we can flush back to 205, 206, from 206 down to 200, from 200. Yeah, so you can see, even though it's just a psych level, from 200, I think we're probably going to be closer to 190, but that's pretty far away. I don't think we need to worry about that this week. So that's Apple. Let's go out here. Let's clear all of our trend lines. We have our stock split. Weekly, remove all trend lines. And NVIDIA is going to be a little trickier. There's not as much support. We have a little bit of support at 95, 75-ish. The rest of this is not super clean. I feel like I'm kind of grasping at straws here on levels. Somewhere in there. This I don't like. I'm not really even 100% sold on that 110 area, but 96, 95.8, definitely there. The 76.5, definitely there. This upside level, I'm not really sure about. This is going to be a little bit trickier to play. You can see there's like some shorter term trends. So 120.85, 121, I think that that's decent. I don't even know if I like this at all. Issue with this is that the distance between the two levels that we now have is about 25% of the overall stock value, which is not what you want to see. Kind of tricky to play something that's moving like that. So this is definitely a large cap ticker, right? But in 2 days, you've had 20% price swings, which, while you can capture the volatility, I think that that's incredibly beneficial. That's a huge move. The fact that it's been trading like this probably means, and just without even looking at the contracts, it probably means that everything's juiced as is, right? Like I don't anticipate these contracts being playable for the majority of people. We're gonna open up. You're gonna have 5 days till expiration. I'm gonna assume that contract values are gonna be well outside of what most people are gonna be able to take. Moving that heavily. Let's see. So let's move this over. August 9th expiration at the money right now is going to be $5, right? That's 107. So I mean, it might be viable if that moves. Or is it? Come back. I really don't like trading like this. This is what I was telling people last week. We gave the downside level, and it ultimately went. But now with the split moving 20% every day, or like 15% of the stock, it's a little crazy. There isn't really much in terms of levels between 121 and 95, not on the daily at least. We can try the hourly again. As we keep dropping down in time frames, the levels are less and less, useful in my opinion. A level that's generated on the 1 minute excuse me, isn't something that I'm looking to trust. Like, I would like to see a weekly or daily level that I'm trying to leverage. You can probably find a level if you drop down your time frame enough. You know, should you trust it? That might be a different story. So we're back, we're on the hourly now. So if we're looking for something between our 95 and 97, you can see that we have a little bit of a range right around here and here. And then, what do we have? This definitely drew some liquidity. And then somewhere up in this area. All right. So again, not really how I like to do it. The more granular you get, the easier it is to find levels like this. Do I trust these levels as much as the daily? No. Is it still valid? You know, maybe every daily candle is 8 of these candles, right? 8 of these candles that are viable while market's open. So just keep that in mind. This is 8 times less, you know, useful to me than a daily candle, which is then, you know, 1/5 of a weekly candle. So the daily and weekly candles definitely provide me a little bit more confidence in the levels, but, you know, in case in the video, there was nothing on the daily between 121 and 197. So we can see, where are we at? 106, we have 97, we have 103.75, we have 106-ish, we have 111.5-ish, we have 117, and we have our 121. So not the way I like to do it. I would prefer to have daily or weekly levels. As you can see, the stock split definitely made things a little bit complicated, because now we're trading in a spot that, you know, price action would have moved very rapidly through there, so there's no levels now that we've kind of changed the chart down to a smaller value. This is how you would do that. Not super confident. I mean, probably the strongest thing that we tested is 111 to 116. Downside movement seemed pretty quick, right, when it happened. There's a lot of ranging up in here. Hourly's kind of ugly, you know, like you could say that it's a lower low, a lower high, but this was pretty nasty on Friday. Friday's price action was basically garbage across the board. So don't like to see that to close out. But does everybody understands how we're like the reason behind why we're trusting our daily levels and our weekly levels more than our hourly or 1 minute or, you know, 3 minute? Should make sense. Let's go over to our Amazon. Let's see if we can find weekly. Not great. Nothing. That's what I want to see. Okay, we want to be over here. Amazon's got a good amount going on here. All right. It's probably far enough. How far down is that? 15%, 13%. Yeah, that should be good. All right. So Amazon currently at 167.75. On the weekly, we actually are able to draw some pretty decent levels. Starting from the lowest, we're looking right around 144. 159, then right above where we close, so 169, and then upside from there 189. Amazon is actually trading at its previous all-time high, which is nice, right? So a lot of the tickers that we're currently dealing with are kind of at this phase. So this vertical line is kind of where things are now. So we've gone up, we've hit all-time highs, and now we're just starting to kind of have a little bit of a correction or a little bit of a pullback, which means that at this point levels were a little bit trickier to find. So Amazon's already gone through a little bit more of that cycle. It's dropped down, it's reestablished a low, it started to push back up, and then is now kind of retesting that previous all-time high area. which is what we want to see. It makes drawing levels significantly easier than, say, something like this, right? So NVIDIA went up, hit the all-time highs, and is starting to come down, but we don't have that kind of bounce back up to test these, which makes it harder to trade than something like this, right? Where we have tested those. Now, mind you, this is 2021, so this is a very long time ago. This, to get back up to this, can take some companies an extremely long amount of time, but it does give us levels. It does give us a little bit more insight to what we're working with. So just keep that in mind. AMD, again, we're trying to draw these predominantly on the weekly. All right, so AMD closed 132.66 levels, starting with our downside. Again, this is on the weekly, so we're looking to close around one of these levels. This is good. So using the weekly at the start of the week gives us a good spot. So this is a strong level. A lot of these are starting off at a strong level, which means that we should be able to catch a move either to the upside weekly level or to the downside weekly level with these. So AMD bottom to top, 100. 128, then right above that is where we closed, 132.66, and then to the upside, 158.5, 182.5, right around that area. AMD's chart is pretty clean right now in terms of the weekly levels. I actually like this. A lot of this has been tested relatively well. So over under 128 is going to be the main outlook here. That's going to be our inflection point for the week. So we need to see where we open up. If we reject that, we could probably look to go short. If we hold that, we can look to long. And either side right now is going to give us a pretty good possibility. So it's 20% either way. That's the time where if you hold it and you do well, you can start looking to take a couple of weeks out at that price point or around that price point. Maybe get a good swing in. Don't have to day trade and babysit the position would be lovely. Tesla weekly. Not the cleanest. I haven't really liked Tesla over the last few weeks. I don't like how it's trading. It's a little, like, the ranges are good, but the ranges are large. Like, this is 40% over a couple of weeks. Yeah, not my favorite chart here. So we closed 208 downside, so bottom to top probably 180, 206, right? So we closed right under that 206 level. 237, 265.5. 300. I don't really. Let's go to the daily just so we can see what we're working with. Overall, if we're on the weekly, it looks like we're pretty rangy, even though we had some strong moves up and strong moves down. Shorter time frames, we're starting to flip a little bit bearish, so lower lows, lower highs. But we're printing right at that 206 level, right? So I think that 206. It only took us a day to drop from 236 to 206. That's about 13%. And then we also were able to get back up there in about a day and a half. So I think that moving between these weekly levels on Tesla is very doable. At this point, there's still, like, volume's tapering off from when it started to pump, but, volume's still good. I think that you could still handle it either direction. I would be leaning downside a little bit more at this point, only because of the lower highs, lower lows. That means that a break under 206, we'd be targeting 180. If you really wanted to be risky, 180 on the on a weekly contract would be pretty wild. Yeah, 180 Tesla 180 put right now is 67 cents. I think that unless we have a flush before market opens, it'll probably be less than that. You know, it's doable. 60 cents all the way down, that would be a pretty wild move. I mean, if you were to get one of these 15, 20-point candles first day on Monday, you'd be sitting pretty. That would be, let's go back to the options chain. Let's say you move 20 bucks, 80, 200 put, you'd be at 307, you'd be about 500%. I think that has potential to move, that 180 put for sure. But you need a little bit of confirmation. Doable. Tesla looking a little bit down. Meta. Zuck in the earnings. So what we had last week, we were trading in a little bit of a channel on the daily, right? So that was the main thing that we had. 428 point or so 482 as the high of that range and 465-ish as the low of that range. So we had earnings popped up, sold off a little bit Thursday, sold off a little bit Friday, and still ended up holding that level, right? So I would still say that level is, here we can draw it out so you can see why, is my my viable level right around 482. I'd like to see a hold up there. That's going to push us up to the 510 range again, another level that we tested last week. And then back to, you know, all-time high, 530 territory, 540, 550. Downside is a little bit harder to gauge. We just have some massive candles ripping through a lot of space. Most obvious is 400. Obviously, that's going to be a psych level. But between 400 and 466, we've moved so rapidly between those spots. There's not really much that we can gather from here. We're going to see something around 451, 450 area. Upside for this is going to be way easier to play. I think that we're still technically bullish. You know, we have higher lows, lower highs, higher highs. So we've kind of transitioned, right? So we had a high, lower high, and then we had a low, lower low, and then we started to transition. So we have a low here, we have a higher high, boom, boom, and then this could potentially be a higher low, which would give us bullish intent, or so they tell us. I just want to see 482 hold. If we see 482 hold into the next week, I think that we can long up to 510. Just for shits and giggles, let's see what 510 call is for this week. Jesus Christ. 510 call for Meta is $3.50 still. So it clearly has some IV keeping that juiced after that earnings move. That seems pretty expensive to me, considering that's, you know, even at this point, a 30-point move. I don't like that as much as the Google or the Tesla 180. Google. Let's clear all the trend lines. Google looking like a potential double bottom. We tested this area before at 164. Last time was May 13th, end of April. So we've definitely tested this area. Slow run up, pretty quick sell down. So levels here are actually going to be pretty stable. They like to do $5 increments. Google's pretty good at holding some of that. So we've got... yeah, it's pretty consistent. Boom, boom. All right. So bottom to top, Google. So we closed 166.3, 160, 164, which is that kind of quadruple bottom. Then above where we closed, 171, 175, 178.5, and then probably the highs. Let's go out to the weekly, see if this checks out. It does. Under that, we've got 151. Yeah, I'm cool with these. So main level to watch on Google right now is going to be 164. Under that, we're going to flip pretty bearish. I would say that's the inflection point for the chart that I'm seeing. The majority of the price action from the last 3 months has been over this level, right? So if we start moving under here, that kind of discredits everything that happened up top, right? You're taking out a big chunk of time. So I think that they're going to try and defend this level. Damn, Ledecky wins. Another one. Yeah, so 164 is going to be the major level on Google here. Microsoft. Again, it's like when I'm drawing these levels, they're pretty quick because I want everybody to understand that like the price specifically has very little relevance, right? It's just creating an area where we're going to start watching what price action does. You can be off by, 15, 20 cents. It doesn't really matter. You just need to be aware that that's an area where you want to be watching. How have we had 30 people on this stream, right? But there's only 6 people viewing it now. What's up with that? Where do these people go? All right, so we're on the daily on Microsoft. This is pretty easy. They have some pretty strong levels here. So we closed 406.74. Downside, let's go bottom to top, 388.5, 400. Then we have our close level. So we want 400 is going to be probably the first level that's tested. It's going to be a big psych level as well. Excuse me. 416.5, 432-ish. And then as we start approaching the highs, we've got 443.5-ish, and then all-time high. Netflix consolidation is real. I don't like this chart, really. There's not enough linear movement. Yeah, I'm not really feeling the Netflix personally. 550 is probably the next level that I'd actually start messing with. The rest of the price action is you can't really draw a level. Like, look at this from here to here. Like, what are you gonna draw? Like, what are you gonna do here? It's still going up, but like, and then same thing here. Like, there's no. I'm not gonna touch that for the way that I trade. I just don't like it. Everything else has had, some sort of stability or some sort of reasonable price action. We come back down to 550. I'll change my mind. This is just gonna get you burnt trying to trade that. That's weekly too, right? So that's like days and days and days of fuckery. And we already did Apple. What time is it? 12:50. I'm going to the fair today. I'm gonna eat like garbage. What else do we want to take? We did Apple. We did Google. McDonald's. Let's check SMCI just for... I've never really traded SMCI. Yeah, I know. I want one of those tornado potatoes. The big spirally guys. I got a chicken or turkey leg last time I was there, and it was literally like eating shoe leather. So I don't know if I try and redeem myself and get another one and, hope for the best, because who doesn't like a turkey leg, or if I just give up. It was awful. I think I almost broke my tooth trying to eat that. We'll check McDonald's just because we're talking about food and it's making me hungry, and we'll check snow. Fuck it, let's check PanW too, might as well. Is my microphone okay? So when I was doing the recording test, it sounds alright. I'm using like the craziest setup right now, so I don't know if you can even see it. Oh, it's all plugged in. We've got this. I'm trying to like hold it up to the camera. That plugged into this crazy thing, plugged into the computer, plugged into, you know, all sorts of wild stuff. So I want to make sure that the audio is as good as we can possibly get it. SMCI is not loading for me. I don't have the data. Okay, cool. I don't know why SMCI is all jacked up. Oh, that's why. I am going to... This is going to be fast. I don't really like this. This doesn't have enough stability in my mind to be something I'm looking to trade consistently. Inflection point here, obviously, is 673.5, right around this area, and we're trading under that by a pretty considerable amount. The second that you move under 675, you are wiping out basically the entire year, right, of gains. Everything up here just goes away, it goes bye-bye. So that's pretty bearish in my mind. Like, that's a lot of, you're just crossing that out, get rid of that, and then what are you left with? Like, there's no levels here, right? So be cautious. If it stays over 675, like, you might be able to start playing with this again, but under that, like, you're literally limiting yourself to just this, and there's no levels to trade off of that, really, that are going to be consistent. Unless you're coming down to 308. And at that point, I think this thing's going to be dead. So, tread lightly. McDonald's. Gotta love it. Look, it's an M. It's holding true to its name. It's made the golden arches. You know it's going to send now. I love how it did that. Some product placement right before it sent. Classic. Classic McDonald's, rubbing it in your face. Chart's a little iffy. Not the cleanest. Though, this double top, let me tell you, this double top at 300 with the golden arches forming, like, come on. That's a wild double top. Like, this is weeks. Yeah, this is weeks and weeks of build up, and it couldn't break 300. So phone me when it gets there. Right now it looks like it's ranging like 250 to 300. Let me know when this does something, because that's nuts. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 weeks, 18 weeks. So you're looking at 4 full months trying to break 300. Yeah, once we get up there, that'll be interesting. But right now it just looks like a range 250 to 300. Get me over 300. That's nuts. Oh, another shit stock. Remember when snow was worth 3-4 times what it is right now? I remember. Big data is going to be suffering with all the AI. Like, you still need big data, but it just doesn't have as much, it's not as buzzwordy. So we're looking at the weekly candles. This is going to be in trouble. Under 125. Again, for much of the same reason that everything else was. That's new lows, right? When you're trading all-time highs, it's difficult because there's no levels, right? We don't really see it, and we don't really touch stocks that are doing the same thing but inverse, because they suck normally. Like, you don't oftentimes get a GameStop where you rally, or a Carvana where it goes from super high to zero and then goes back up. That doesn't usually happen with the stock market. Normally when things come down, they stay down. I don't really like the idea of trading something that's at its bottom for the same reason that I don't like trading something that's at its top. What are you going to do down here? Right? Like, realistically, what are you going to do? Because anybody saying, oh, I'm in a long here is probably pretty crazy. And then if you're shorting the bottom, but you're not just shorting the bottom, you're shorting like the absolute bottom, right? Like sometimes on SPY, we take a put, but it's not trading at zero. You know, it's not trading at all-time lows. This is the definition of trying to short the bottom. I don't know. I can't really provide you any sort of clarity on what to do with this one. Be careful. Like, I can't be like, oh, you should long it because clearly the company's doing shit, and I can't tell you to short it because it's the very bottom of the stock. So I would just stay away from that. Maybe you short it and it goes to zero next week. That'd be a pretty cool win. I don't know how that works exactly. And then PanW, before I go and put my my fair clothes on. Got a little bit of a range. PanW is going to be, so we're on the weekly. Last week it, dropped 10%. We're looking at 4 red weeks in a row. 300 is going to be a major psych level. Let's pull up the daily and see what we got. Yeah, so 300, we're over 300. Man, you know what sounds good? A Mitchie at the fair. A Mitchie and a meat or something. I'm not like a big sweets guy, but like maybe a dessert. Funnel cake sounds good. Fuck, I love the fair. Let me see a fucking cow. Oof. Cows go crazy. Let me see a demolition derby. It's the redneck in me that loves fairs. The country boy. Alright, sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm like having delusions of grandeur here, all revolving around fairs. 305.4 close for PanW. Hard to really say. It's coming down, right? Not super clean, really choppy, so we're on the daily. There's not a whole lot of linear movement. It looks like occasionally, like you'll get some massive thing after just chopping around all willy-nilly. Levels in reverse order, we're going to go 262-ish, 278, 300, right? So right under where we're at. Upside's going to be 315, 316, 337, 345, and then highs. It's not the cleanest price action, right? I like to see stuff where, not even Google, where is it? Where we're getting a little bit more of the linear movement, where we see long moves and then a consolidation. Then we see long moves. Like, I don't like to just see consolidation, essentially, and then like one random rip up out of nowhere, right? I don't like to see that. So this doesn't trade in a way that I personally would like. But, we hold 300. You could probably long it. It looks like it's been there for a minute. It's been trading 300 since the end of last year. So it's going to be pretty strong as a psych level. I don't know if it's the pivot point exactly. Pivot point looks closer to 316, but I think 300, 316 can go long there. This is a year's worth of trading data, so it's been trading in this area for a little bit. So I think as long as it holds that, it's good to probably take to the upside. All right, kids. That is going to be it for me today. I think that this stream worked well. Shoot me a message in the Discord if there's anything that went too wonky. I'm trying to dial in the audio and the video, and then obviously figuring out how to leverage this stream here. So thanks for showing up, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will be back on Monday And yeah, and we'll keep it going. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And if not, I'll see you in a few days. Take it easy.